In the beginning, there's always breath. It arrives before thought, before personality, before even the illusion of time. I didn't understand this until I found myself alone in a sealed chamber, deep underground, surrounded by nothing but the sound of my own breath, echoing off stone walls. No phone, no food, no light, just me, my breath, and a growing awareness that reality was morphing around me. And the craziest part? I wasn't hallucinating. I was witnessing reality reshape itself from within, just by shifting how I breathed and where I placed my awareness. What I'm about to share with you isn't a technique, it's a portal. A portal into a dimension of consciousness that most people never access because they're too busy chasing what's already inside them. The observer breath is not like normal breathing. It's not about oxygen, it's about observation. It's about becoming the one who watches without judgment, the one who sees without reacting. And when you become that version of yourself, reality bends not because you force it, but because you finally become aligned with the truth of how it actually works. Most people live like leaves in the wind, blown around by emotions, expectations, and unconscious beliefs. They react to everything, thinking they are making choices, when in fact they're just responding to scripts written long ago. But there's a secret door inside you, one you felt glimpses of in moments of stillness, in dreams, or in the quiet between thoughts. That door leads to the observer. And when you breathe as the observer, you step outside the chaos and begin to reshape reality, not by changing it, but by changing your relationship to it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The breath is the most immediate path to this doorway. Not because it's spiritual, but because it's fundamental. Breath is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, the physical and the energetic. When you breathe without awareness, you remain trapped in patterns. But when you breathe with full presence, with the intention to observe, something shifts. You stop being the one trapped in the storm, and you become the sky itself. Think of it this way: in every moment, you're either reacting or observing. Reaction locks you into the 3D matrix: cause and effect, tension and resistance, fear and control. But observation lifts you out of it. It doesn't mean you're passive, it means you're conscious. And consciousness is the master key. It's what allows you to reshape what's happening, not by force, but by frequency. Because the outer world is always reflecting the inner one. Let me ask you something that might change everything. When was the last time you actually watched your breath, like really watched it? Not counted it, not manipulated it, but simply became the silent witness to it, as if watching an ancient ritual unfold. That's where it begins. Not in effort, but in awareness. The observer breath is not something you do, it's something you become. I remember the first time I fully dropped into it. I was sitting in stillness, heart racing, mind spinning with 1,000 distractions. But instead of trying to silence them, I did something different. I became the one who noticed. I watched the breath rise and fall, not with control, but with curiosity. And then suddenly, it was like I stepped behind a curtain. Everything slowed down. My thoughts became transparent. My body felt like light, and I knew I wasn't the thinker. I was the space in which the thinking occurred. That's the observer. And once you taste it, you can't go back. Because from that place, you start to see that your entire life is a projection of your inner state. not metaphorically, literally. The people you attract, the problems you face, the patterns that repeat, they're not random. They're feedback, mirrors, echoes of your breath, your focus, your energy. And most of us are unconsciously breathing reality into being without realizing it. But this is why the observer breath is the foundation of conscious creation. Not because it's a magic trick, but because it reclaims the most fundamental power you have, the power to choose how you relate to your inner experience. And when you shift your relationship with your inner world, the outer world must follow. It has no choice. Reality is not fixed. It's fluid, and you are the sculptor. But here's where it gets wild. When you enter deep enough into the observer state, you start to experience something strange. It's as if you're watching yourself, but you're also watching the watcher. There's a doubling of awareness. You become aware of being aware. And in that space, the ego begins to dissolve. Fear evaporates, time stretches, and the illusion of separation begins to fade. This is not theory. This is direct experience. And it's available to anyone who is willing to stop trying to change the world and instead start witnessing it. The breath is the anchor. It keeps you here while you explore there. It grounds you while your consciousness expands beyond identity. You don't need a teacher, a guru, or a ritual. You just need willingness and a breath that you're willing to observe without needing to control. But make no mistake, this isn't easy. Not because the process is complicated, but because the mind resists stillness. The ego thrives on distraction, on movement, on doing. The observer breath invites you into being. And being is uncomfortable at first because it exposes everything you've been avoiding. The pain, the stories, the tension, they rise to the surface. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Because here's the secret. The breath doesn't just reveal reality, it heals it. When you observe your breath through the lens of presence, it acts like a mirror and a scalpel. It shows you where you're out of alignment and begins to dissolve the blocks. You don't have to fix anything. You just have to feel it, watch it, let it move. And as you do, the inner noise fades and clarity arises. You begin to feel your body as energy. You sense the subtle currents beneath your skin. You hear thoughts, but they no longer control you. Emotions come and go, like weather patterns across a vast sky. And you realize you are not those emotions. You are not those thoughts. You are the one who sees. You are the observer. And from that place, you can reshape anything. Because now, you're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're no longer bound by pattern, you're creating from presence. You can watch a trigger arise and stay still. You can hold space for your fear without becoming it. You can breathe into discomfort and watch it alchemize into power. This is where it gets powerful. Once you're anchored in the observer breath, you can begin to direct your focus with precision, not to control life, but to collaborate with it. You can breathe into an intention and feel it vibrate through your entire field. You can hold an image in your mind and watch your body align with it. And because you're no longer fragmented, your energy becomes coherent, and coherence creates. What if I told you that reality is not responding to your desires, but to your coherence? That the universe isn't listening to what you say you want, but to what your being is actually broadcasting. This is why many people struggle with manifestation. They say abundance, but breathe scarcity. They affirm peace, but radiate anxiety. The observer breath aligns your inner broadcast with your outer intention. And when those two match, reality has no choice but to respond. So now, let me ask you the question that cracked me open the first time I heard it. Who are you when there is nothing left to fix, nothing left to prove, and nothing left to prove, and nothing left to fear? Sit with that. Breathe into it. Observe what arises. That question is not meant to be answered, it's meant to be lived. And only the observer within you can live it fully. This is why breath is the most underestimated spiritual technology on earth. It's free, it's immediate, and it bypasses all your mental defenses. It drops you straight into the truth, raw and unfiltered. And in that truth, you find your power, not the power to control others, but the power to liberate yourself. And a liberated self is the most unstoppable force in existence. But you don't need more knowledge, you need more presence. You don't need more effort, you need more awareness. And the observer breath is the purest path to that awareness. It's not a destination, it's a shift in perception. And once you shift, you'll never see the world the same way again. Once you've tasted the perspective of the observer, it changes how you experience everything. You no longer just live inside your thoughts, you begin to notice the space between them. That space, that ever-present stillness, is not empty. It's alive, intelligent, and infinitely creative. It's the field where all timelines exist, and the observer breath is the key to navigating it with conscious intent. This is where your reality starts to bend not through control, but through alignment. When you're anchored in the observer, your perception sharpens and your emotional reactivity softens. You begin to sense that you are not just experiencing life, you are shaping it. The way you respond to a moment feeds energy into certain timelines and collapses others. The breath becomes a steering wheel, and your awareness is the hands that guide it. We're conditioned to believe the world is solid, fixed, and out there. But the deeper you go into self-observation, the more you realize that the world is malleable, responsive, and made of your consciousness. Every breath you take while rooted in the observer alters the vibrational field around you. If your breath is shallow, scattered, or anxious, it feeds into the narrative of fear. But if your breath is spacious, aware, and grounded, it begins to reprogram your entire energetic reality. This is why ancient traditions place so much emphasis on breath, not for survival, but for transformation. The breath carries codes. It transfers information from the soul to the body and from the body to the field. And when you bring full awareness to the breath, you unlock those codes. You begin to realize that every inhale can invite new potential, and every exhale can release an outdated pattern. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The observer breath doesn't just affect your internal state, it influences how others react to you. When you're fully present, people feel it. They may not know why, but they'll experience you as grounded, magnetic, and safe. That's because your field is no longer chaotic. It's coherent, and coherence is contagious. Think about the last time you were around someone who was deeply at peace. Didn't something inside you settle too? That's the power of presence. It calibrates the room without saying a word. And when you breathe as the observer, you become that presence. You become the still point in a swirling world. And that stillness is not passive, it's powerful. Let's talk about fear, because this is where many people get stuck. Fear is simply energy that has been held too tightly in the body and mind. It's a contraction, a resistance to what is. But when you observe fear without judging it and breathe with it instead of against it, something miraculous happens. The fear begins to dissolve not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it. Every emotion is looking for your presence, not your resistance. Sadness, anger, anxiety, they all become less scary when you become more spacious. The observer doesn't deny emotions, it witnesses them with compassion. And that witnessing creates room for those emotions to transform. Energy that was once stuck begins to flow again. You may be asking, but how do I actually practice the observer breath in everyday life? It starts with pausing. In any moment of stress or reactivity, stop and notice your breath. Don't change it, just feel it. Where is it in your body? Is it shallow or deep, fast or slow? Then shift into the role of the witness. Watch the breath like it's not yours, like you're observing a river. This might sound simple, but it's revolutionary. Because the moment you observe the breath, you step out of the story. You are no longer caught in the loop of this shouldn't be happening. You are simply present with what is. And presence always brings power. Now, here's where you can take it deeper. Begin using the breath as a tuning mechanism. Inhale with the feeling of expansion, as if you're inviting your higher self into the room. Exhale with the intention of letting go, not just of tension, but of identification. Let go of who you think you are. Let go of the labels, the roles, the expectations. And just observe what remains. What remains is awareness, pure awareness. And that awareness is the creative force behind all manifestation. When you breathe from that place, your desires become energetic instructions instead of wishful thinking. You're no longer begging the universe, you're communing with it. And the universe responds not to desperation, but to clarity. So the more clearly you breathe, the more clearly you see. The more clearly you see, the more aligned your actions become. You stop forcing things. You begin to trust timing, and trust creates a frequency that invites miracles. Now let's go even deeper. There's a moment in stillness where you may feel like you're dissolving. The edges of your identity blur. You're no longer breathing the breath is breathing you. You are not observing reality, you are reality observing itself. This is not an ego experience, it's a soul remembrance. And when you return from that state, everything feels different. You may still walk the same path, speak the same language, but you've shifted dimensions internally. Time feels slower. Colors look brighter. People feel more transparent, and your intuition becomes razor sharp. This is not fantasy. This is what happens when you remove the static of unconsciousness and tune into the signal of truth. The observer breath is not just a practice, it's a portal to the quantum field where all possibilities exist. And the breath is your access code. But this level of presence comes with responsibility. Because now you know your energy affects everything. Every breath you take while holding the observer's frequency is contributing to the collective field. You're not just breathing for yourself, you're breathing for the planet. Every time you choose presence over panic, love over fear, clarity over confusion, you shift the timeline of humanity. So the question becomes, can you stay present even when it hurts? Can you observe even when you want to react? That's the real initiation. That's the edge where the ego dies and the soul awakens. And that edge is where transformation happens. People often ask, how do I hold this state longer? The answer is practice, not perfection, but presence. You don't need hours of meditation. You just need micro moments of awareness. Pause before speaking. Breathe before reacting. Observe before deciding. These small moments compound. Over time, they rewire your nervous system. They shift your baseline from survival to sovereignty. You become less interested in drama and more interested in truth. You begin to speak less, but say more. You move slower, but with more precision. And the world around you begins to respond. Opportunities show up when you stop chasing. People meet you at your new vibration. Synchronicities increase. Life begins to feel enchanted, not because it changed, but because you did. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Take a deep breath in and now out. Feel your body. Feel the space around your body. Now feel the one who is feeling. That's the observer. That's who you truly are. And when you live from that place, suffering transforms into insight. Resistance turns into surrender, and effort becomes embodiment. This is the deeper magic, not escaping life, but seeing it clearly for the first time. So I leave you with this question. Who are you when nothing is left to resist? Who are you when even your breath becomes a prayer, a portal, a song of alignment? Let that question breathe through you. Let it echo through your cells, and let the answer arise not from your mind, but from your being. Now that you've stepped into the space of the observer, you can feel it, can't you? The difference between doing and being, between reacting and radiating, between chasing reality and realizing you are the one breathing it into form. This is not just a better way to live, it's the only way to truly create without suffering. The breath is no longer just air moving in and out of the lungs. It's become a carrier wave of consciousness. Each inhale is a gathering of awareness. Each exhale is a release of distortion. And what's left is presence clean, undiluted, undistracted presence. That presence is your superpower. It's how you collapse timelines that no longer serve you and step into the ones that do. But don't be fooled, this isn't about escaping the world. It's about engaging more deeply with it, through the lens of truth instead of illusion. When you walk through life as the observer, you're not detached, you're deeply connected, but you're not entangled. You feel everything, but you're not consumed by anything. You see the drama, but you don't become the character. And that changes your entire energetic signature. Your presence becomes medicine, not just for you, but for everyone around you. People will feel calmer in your presence, and they won't know why. Your silence will say more than their noise ever could. Because you've become what the world is secretly starving for, someone who is actually here. Think about that for a moment. How often are you actually here? Not thinking about the past, not worrying about the future, just here, in this breath, in this moment, fully aware. That's rare, and that rarity makes you valuable. not in a material sense, but in a vibrational one. We live in a world addicted to speed, stimulation, and distraction. Everyone is scanning for something real, something grounded, something true. And when you live from the observer breath, you become that something. You become a lighthouse, not because you try to shine, but because you've stopped trying entirely. You've just become real. And from that realness, your reality begins to conform. Not to your ego's desires, but to your soul's frequency. You begin to notice that things flow to you without effort. Not because you're lucky, but because you've stopped resisting. You're no longer vibrating in friction, you're vibrating in alignment. But alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means honesty. It means you're not faking your peace. You're not pretending to be spiritual while secretly drowning in fear. You're just here, breathing, observing, allowing, adjusting. That's power. That's grace. You'll still feel pain sometimes. You'll still get triggered. But you won't get lost in it. You'll breathe through it. You'll watch it like a wave, and you'll ride it without letting it knock you under. This is what it means to live in mastery, not that nothing touches you, but that nothing owns you. You are no longer a puppet of your emotions. You are the stage on which they come and go. And the more you breathe as the observer, the more courageous you become. Courage not in the loud, dramatic sense, but in the quiet kind of bravery that sits with discomfort instead of running from it. The kind that meets fear with curiosity. The kind that says, I see you, instead of I hate you. That is spiritual maturity. That is evolution. And you didn't come here to play small. You didn't incarnate to just survive. You came here to remember, to embody, to awaken, and to assist others in doing the same. You came to be a bridge between worlds. And that bridge is built with breath, presence, and awareness. So how do you maintain this in a world that constantly tries to pull you back into reaction, into noise, into illusion? By returning, over and over again, not once a day, but 100 times a day if necessary. Every time you catch yourself drifting, you come back to the breath, to the body, to the observer. This is not about escaping your responsibilities. It's about transforming how you show up to them. When you're rooted in the observer breath, even mundane tasks become sacred. Washing dishes becomes a meditation. Driving becomes a prayer. Work becomes an expression of alignment. And people notice. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because your energy speaks louder than your words. You become a permission slip for others to slow down, to soften, to be present. This is how you lead without leading. This is how you heal without trying. But let's go deeper still. Because the observer breath doesn't just change your state, it changes your structure. Your nervous system begins to rewire. Your cells begin to hold more light. Your choices become cleaner. Your relationships become more honest. You stop tolerating things that drain you and start gravitating toward what nourishes you. Not out of avoidance, but out of clarity. You don't need to prove, chase, or convince. You simply are. And that beingness becomes a frequency that calls in everything aligned and repels everything that isn't. You'll start to notice that you don't have to force decisions anymore. The right answers arise in stillness. The right people show up when you're not looking. The money comes when you're not desperate. Why? Because you're finally aligned with the field, and the field is intelligent. It wants to give to you, but it can only match your frequency. So when you breathe with awareness, you tune your instrument. You become the song the universe wants to dance with. And life becomes less of a struggle and more of a symphony. Now take a moment and ask yourself, what would your life look like if you fully trusted your breath to guide you? Not your mind, not your fears, just your breath. What would you stop forcing? What would you finally allow? This is not just about peace, it's about power. The kind of power that doesn't need to be loud to be real. The kind that doesn't dominate but liberates. The kind that doesn't seek control but radiates coherence. That's what the observer breath gives you access to. And the more you live from that place, the more you realize you are not here to escape this world. You are here to transform it by embodying a frequency that most people have forgotten. You are here to remind others that there is another way. A way of presence, of truth, of breath. You don't need to preach it. You just need to be it. Walk through the world as the observer and watch how the world rearranges itself around your presence. Not always immediately, but inevitably. Because frequency is the language of the universe, and now you're fluent. So what happens next? You live, you breathe, you observe, and you create not from lack, but from overflow. Not from hustle, but from harmony. You become the one who no longer reacts to life, but shapes it. You become the one who no longer fears the unknown, but dances with it. You become the one who no longer seeks the light, but is the light. And not because you tried, but because you remembered. So breathe, watch, witness, align, and watch reality bend not because you forced it, but because you became the one who could hold it. This is the observer breath. This is how we reshape reality from within